for traffic engineering for the city, or in old-fashioned terms, the city traffic engineer. And we're here tonight to talk about concerns of Nevada Avenue based on some of the process that we've done so far for a traffic study for the entire area of near North End and Old North End. I've got a pretty short presentation tonight. Do have a couple spots in the presentation that I might try to ask questions and get some feedback on, but we'll have plenty of time for comments and questions after that. So, Tim? We started this process in August over in the big room with 2 evenings of neighbors coming in, and they could write down their comments about 3 different streets in the Old North End. And for Nevada, the major concerns, really all the concerns that came out of it, were traffic volumes, traffic speeds, pedestrian safety, accidents. There really wasn't, accidents was not listed on Nevada in that first meeting, but it has come out in meetings since then, so I wanted to add that. Buses, trucks, parking, and then some other issues that I'll describe later. Next. So I want to go through each of these major areas, talk about what was said at the meeting, and give you a quick overview on what we're trying to do to provide some solutions for that concern. So traffic volumes, basically what people said on Nevada, is too much traffic and it's a direct route to downtown. I can't argue with either of those statements. On traffic volume solutions, I realize that first one might seem hard. Must accept history as a state highway. The reason I say that is sometimes when we're looking for solutions and looking forward, it's really important to understand where we've been and why people have certain attitudes. Until the year 2007, Nevada Avenue was a state highway. It was I-25 before there was an I-25, and eventually it got taken over as a city street. But when a lifelong resident of Colorado Springs is coming down Nevada Avenue with that determined look in his eye that he's going to get downtown, you have to stop and think that this may be someone who has driven Nevada Avenue all their life and think of it as the major route from north to south in Colorado Springs. It has made a difference that Nevada Avenue has switched from a state highway to a city street. Between 2001 and 2009, which is that period that we ended up with Nevada Avenue as a city street, traffic volumes dropped on Nevada Avenue from over 20,000 to around 17,000. And they have been fairly consistent at 17,000 vehicles per day ever since. The volumes on Nevada today are consistent with what the volumes on Nevada Avenue were back in the 1980s. And I don't think there's many other streets in Colorado Springs that you can say that at. So we are making progress. I'm not saying that that's the end of it and that's as far as it goes, but please do keep in mind we are making progress. There is less traffic than it used to be. Now we just want it to be less traffic and more pleasant traffic for the residential street that Nevada really is. So we want to continue, come back. We want to continue with neighborhood enhancement projects that tell people that are still using Nevada as a state highway that at this point in time they're driving through a very nice residential neighborhood and they should treat it respectfully. We're going to start taking annual traffic counts. I went back and looked at traffic counts through the 1980s, found that often we would skip 5-6 years without taking traffic counts on Nevada. Right now, while we're doing these changes, I have requested that we take traffic counts annually, at least annually. We might take them every 6 months if we start seeing changes that we're not happy with. So that I want to really pay attention to make sure we know where traffic on Nevada Avenue is at any point in time. And if there's increases or drastic changes to traffic on Nevada Avenue, we want to address that as quickly as we can. There's a number of things that we can do if we do start seeing those changes. Next slide. Traffic speed. If any of you have seen me talking anywhere to, my grandkids, my husband, it doesn't matter. What I talk about the most is speeding in Colorado Springs and how I wish I could get people to drive slower. And that includes people in the Old North End. So people back in August said that the speeds were too fast on Nevada, there was not enough enforcement, and they wanted speed sensors or flashing lights because of the speed. So one of the first things that we did with this project is reduce the speed limit on the arterial streets in North End from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour. And I hope you're beginning to see the difference in that, but that always does
No enforcement.
We'll get to that. We want to do increased enforcement, and I do have the commander here for this substation. And they sent me the historic records of tickets written on North Nevada, and they really are trying to go out there and enforce that feeling. But keep in mind, a police officer can only be there for a fairly short period of time. What will really help North Nevada is if all of you, when you're driving North Nevada, because you can be a pretty significant amount of traffic on North Nevada, if you drive it all at 30 miles per hour, so that everyone behind you drives it all at 30 miles per hour. I drive the speed limit all the time, and now sometimes I get a fairly long line of traffic behind me, but no one's shouting.
Well, you've got 2 lane roads at this point.
I'm not narrowing Nevada, but very much. So, guys, do try to drive the speed limit, because it does make a difference. You do become that pace car, you have people behind you, and they might actually look up at the speed limit and say, go, wow, when did that change from 35 to 30? And they might just
So what are you smoking? Colorado.
guys, have you noticed on Nevada, and I know you all have, that there's all sorts of bumps on Nevada at the intersections. As you drive Nevada, at every intersection, you tend to do a whoop-de-doo and go over that bump. Those bumps were there originally because of drainage concerns, and they didn't straighten them out when they put the existing streets in and added drainage to them. So the city is going to be repaving Nevada this summer, and the Streets Department called and said, well, you're working on Nevada, so do you want us to take, it'll take a little bit more money, but do you want us to take and smooth Nevada completely smooth and not have those bumps? And I said, no. Those bumps are one of the few things that probably slow people down and keep them from driving even faster on Nevada. So when the street department repaves, all of your whoop-de-doos stay in place. If you don't like the whoop-de-doos, I'm sorry, but they are fairly effective at slowing down. Sure, I would love that. First of all, I need to know, raise your hand if you live on Nevada. Now, if you, no, keep your hands up. It'll only be a minute. Keep your hands up. Now, if you want a smooth surface on Nevada and no whoop-de-doos, keep your hands up.
No whoop-de-doos.
Smooth surface, no whoop-de-doos.
We
Okay.
want speed bumps like wood.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
That's right.
The wood's got the
That's the best
best
I can
speed
do for
bumps.
you. So, that wood is not an arterial street. It's a local street. Those whoop-de-doos are the best I can do for you on the arterial street.
Everybody just voted. They don't want that.
No, can I see this again? And if you need to. Okay, everyone who lives on Nevada, hands up. Everyone who wants the streets to be smooth with no whoop-de-doos, keep your hand up.
Why?
So you guys want the whoop-de-doos?
We'll keep the whoop-de-doos, okay?
Don't you very much.
Just don't narrow Cascade.
Guys, it's only Wednesday night, and this is my third public meeting this week, and I still have another one to go, so let me get through this a little more easily.
I got 2 more days.
5 Jill Gabler's neighborhood and put it to a vote instead of having 35 people ram it down everybody's throats.
Well, thank you very much, but this vote tonight was fine. Truthfully, I do not do traffic engineering by vote.
You
So,
should.
no, I shouldn't. Because then I'd have to take my college degree and 42 years of experience as a traffic engineer and throw them right out. So it comes to a federal Now, back to speed sensors and flashers are not recommended by the federal government. In fact, one of the things that when you have a light that flashes your speed at you as you go by it can have some really bad results, and I think they would be terrible results on North Nevada. One of those results is that in off hours, like the middle of the night, with high schoolers and that type of thing, they like to see if those flashing lights actually will go into the triple digits. Can I get over 100? I don't want anyone speeding fast on Nevada, even if it is 2 o'clock in the morning. So those lights do not, federal study after federal study shows that those lights do not decrease the speed. It's things that we do to the road itself and not the sign that decrease the speed on Nevada. Next. You mentioned safety pedestrian concerns, and there's been talk about why can't we have ramps at every intersection that crosses Nevada, that type of thing. The city is very concerned about putting in appropriate ADA requirements. That's one of our main courses that we're doing right now. However, it is not considered safe for an ADA ramp to go in on a 4-lane highway where it's uncontrolled for people to cross the street.
It's not a
I'm sorry, but here's the problem. You end up with the same problem that we've had on Cascade at the CC College. Someone crosses there and the car in the first lane stops for them and hides that pedestrian from the car in the second lane, and that's where they get hit. Now, can a reasonable adult or a teenager cross Nevada? No, I'm not answering questions right now. I'll do it at the end. Can a reasonable adult or teenager cross Nevada during various times of the day? Of course. And I don't mind if you do that. And I don't think the police are going to write you a jaywalking ticket for that. But it's a different thing when we put an ADA ramp there, because that allows a 7-year-old on a bike who's promised his mom that he'll stay on the sidewalk to cut right across there. That allows a blind person to assume that there's some form of control for crossing that street, and we really don't have it. But what we do have at Nevada is fairly long distances between intersections where you can cross the street. If you look at this, this shows you the spacing of signals on Nevada. So you have Uinta, Del Norte, Fontanero, and Jackson. So what I'd like to ask you is, I have 2 questions for you. One, do we need additional mid-block signals with push buttons for pedestrians where they can have a safe crossing on Nevada, other than where we have current signals?
Kathy, that's actually, in my view, because we've talked about this before, this whole thing on Cascade, that seems to me, I would drive Nevada almost every day, that works out really well relative to what you've got going on Cascade. Because kids that want to use it, traffic stops. Kids who don't want to use it, people will see a green light and they drive. It seems the Cascade with the flashing lights, half the people stop when there's nobody there because the lights are flashing, so you just snarl on the highway. So what about a light, one signal light on Cascade instead of 4 different crosswalks with flashing lights?
Okay, we discussed the technicalities of Cascade at the last meeting, and I'm sorry if some of you weren't there. I'll give you a real brief synopsis of it. We did computer modeling of the pedestrian and the cars on Cascade. What we found on Cascade is there's so many students needing to cross at various times of the day that it's really hard to control them at signalized intersections. And those signalized intersections will end up being a red light for Cascade the majority of the time. You end up delaying the traffic more if you leave it at 4 lanes and put in those pedestrian push buttons for the students. One of the reasons is that push button has to have a green light for the student to cross the entire street of Cascade. I can't do it half at a time. If I take it down to 1 lane in each direction, then the car is only stopping when the student is right there. As soon as they get into the median, they can go again. So you have less delay on Cascade with normal crosswalks, not the flashing lights, but just normal crosswalks, than you would if you had push buttons. Nevada, however, doesn't have near as many pedestrians crossing. And,
Now, your students are crossing the street illegally every day.
yes, they are.
Right at the stop.
Yes, they are. Thanks, I asked, wait for the question. So what I'm asking you is, do you think it's needed? Do you want it, another pedestrian signal on Nevada, so that in one of those long stretches, you have someplace to go where you can push the button and cross Nevada? And that would have, and that would have
Every
ADA.
single intersection.
Okay, stop.
And handicap
Stop,
accessible.
stop. I'll put the requirements on this, sir, okay? It would have ADA ramps at it. Now for the tough part. I need to put that mid-block crossing at a mid-block, not at an intersection, because then cars will use it illegally. It has to be at a mid-block. So what block do you think would be useful for you?
Cascade between UNA and Tetra.
No, we're talking about Nevada.
I am, I'm
Winton
talking
and
about
Jackson.
that too.
Right by the school campus.
Yeah.
Okay, this was gonna be my question number 2. Let's talk about Steele Elementary. We'll go to that and we'll go back to the additional signal. Steele Elementary currently has a pedestrian signal at the Del Norte intersection. I have a lot of students that cross at Espanola, and they don't seem to want to walk that block, back and forth. I can't put 2 signals there, 1 block apart. No, I can't, because even one of them isn't warranted, so no, I can't. But what I could do is put, well, there's 2 things actually I can do. I can move the signal from Del Norte to Espanola, if that's truly what the neighborhood wants. It doesn't matter to me which corner it's on. Either one would serve the same purpose. Or I could put it as a pedestrian signal only, mid-block, midway between Espanola and Del Norte, that would serve pedestrians. Thank you. We're going to take time out for comments before I go on, because I really do want to hear some answers on this. What else do you think? Which one do you like?
I just don't get it. Neighborhoods laid out on a grid street process.
Yes, it is.
People will cross at the grid intersections. So your opinion that they can only go mid-block is flawed.
It won't
I don't think many contemporary urban designers would agree with you. And I'll say it again, if you can't do it, let's assign the job to somebody else.
Thank you.
Well, if you can put
But-
it mid-block, then you can see it.
But if your choices are leave it at Del Norte, take it to Espanola, or put in a mid-block signal instead, which do you guys like? Do you want to raise hands on this? Yes.
You can't even get across Fontenaro and Nevada on one push button of the thing because the lights are not, I told you this at the last meeting and you said you would address it. But you can push that button and you would have to run and maybe trip in the holes on the way across Nevada because it's not long enough for a pedestrian to cross.
I did go back after our last meeting to check this and found that it was accurate, but let me explain how the pedestrian crossing button works. You have to push the button. You can't just wait for a second change and then get the walk signal. You have to push the button. Once you push the button, it may take a while to get that walk sign, because if the signal is working in progression during a peak hour, it's going to wait until a good time in progression to turn. Once you get the walk sign, that walk sign is timed. So from one curve to the far curve, you can walk at 3.2 feet per minute, which is pretty slow. That's ADA. That's ADA requirement. Now what that means is, I get the walk sign, I start walking at 3.2 feet per second. I will get to the other side safely by the time the hand stops flashing. That hand is not flashing at you in the crosswalk. It's flashing at people at the other side of the street and telling them not to come out in the street yet. Wait till the next one.
That's new. Kindergarten was a long time ago. Come on. Have you walked it? Try walking it.
Certainly I've walked it.
With a child.
And that number you put up is the
Or both.
ADA maximum.
Okay, we're going on from this. Do you want to let me know what you like? Del Norte, Espanola or a mid-block crossing. If you want to know that, I'll take that.
I feel like Jerry's idea.
Okay. We're gonna do both. And all those in favor of keeping the signal as Dunmore, raise your hand.
We need two.
We need two.
That's not one of your choices.
Why?
If you want two, raise your hand.
Okay, you're not gonna get it, and do you want to take a vote on it?
Why? No, I already get it.
I am not putting two traffic signals in one block from each other in the middle of a residential
But
area.
there's a school there.
There's a school.
It's a school, but
You've got dozens of flashing lights for the high school college kids.
including a mid-block location, so that the Del Norte people and the Espanola people can.
So college kids need it, but elementary school kids
About
don't?
this for years. You were fighting about this
Yeah.
with the last traffic engineer.
But when I walk my dogs, I need those two intersections to walk my dogs. What's the difference in me walking my dogs or somebody walking a toddler? We need both those intersections to have the proper crossings.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one then. So is there an additional intersection, particularly up north between Fontanero and Jackson, that you think would be helpful to have a pedestrian crossing at?
By the hospital.
Del Norte.
Next.
Can I ask why Fontanero or Espanola don't have school zone signs on them? Like the speed limit is 30 through the school.
I moved, several years ago, I moved the school flasher zone past Espanola so that it would be 20 miles per hour through
Oh, I'm talking about
Espanola
on
as well as
Espanola.
Del Norte. No, that's not, you put those school flasher zones where you have a crossing guard, not just where you think there might be a school nearby,
Okay.
okay? Traffic accident concerns. This has been brought up more recently, but I wanted to discuss this. There's been a concern about the high number of fatalities, particularly, but just the high number of crashes as well. So one of the big things that can help to prevent traffic accidents and keep traffic accidents from being serious is to lower the traffic speed. And so that's one of the things we really want to do here. In addition, I think I want you to understand, I think the concern over the last 5 years, can I have the next slide? So this table and this information is all about the last 5 years on the Valley, okay? And in the last 5 years, there have been 3 fatalities on Nevada. As a city traffic engineer, I consider that 3 too many. It doesn't mean it's our highest fatality location or anything like that. You have to look at traffic accidents over a fairly long period of time before you see trends like that. But that's not the highest in the city by any stretch of the
It's the highest in the neighborhood.
In a residential street.
You need to get your facts straight. It really is.
So, these numbers come straight from the Colorado Springs Police Department, but let me point out a couple things. So in the last 5 years, Nevada has had, on average, about 44 intersections, or 44 accidents a year on the stretch of Nevada from, say, Uinta up north to past Jackson. If you go back and look at the 13 years previous to that, the average number of accidents on Nevada was 55 a year. In the year 2000, there were 85 accidents on Nevada, not the 44 that you currently have. So Nevada's accidents have currently decreased, and that's probably a combination of 2 things: lower speeds and, most importantly, lower volumes.
Police
So
aren't
long-
responding to all the accidents.
Oh, no, that's
Shut
true.
the
That
trucks off.
happens
That
all
makes a
over the
difference.
city. If you have a small fender bender, you might exchange information and drive on. But you're not gonna have a fatality and everyone just gets up and drives on. So this accident information certainly covers the majority of major accidents. Okay? So I'm not saying that accidents aren't critical on Nevada. What I'm saying is they're within reason on Nevada. And if we keep working on the speed and the volume of traffic on Nevada, you shouldn't expect an increase in traffic crashes there.
How are you doing the volume? You said working on the volume, what are you gonna do to reduce that?
Well, first of all, by checking it to make sure it's not increasing. And if it is increasing, then we start pulling out some tricks. Okay?
Like narrowing Cascade?
Next one.
But what about the speeders? What about the people that don't obey the 30 miles an hour speed limit on Nevada?
When we get to questions, I'm gonna let you ask that question. I'm sure that Commander Mandel would be happy to answer that.
Yeah, but they're notorious. No one goes to speed
I
limit.
said that when we get to the questions, I'll let you ask that question.
All right.
Okay. Buses. There were lots of bus concerns on Nevada. Buses should be off in Nevada. There were concerns about the bus stop locations. The buses are too wide for the lanes on Nevada.
Yep.
Buses block the lanes when they're loading people.
Yep.
So why were
Yeah,
they
all those.
Why is it still there?
So I looked at it, I watched the bus operation that's happening. I sat down and talked to both the administration and Mountain Metro Transit and recommended that the buses from Nevada be moved to Weber Street. You may say that, but that's my recommendation. It's at Mountain Metro. Mountain Metro will look at that and develop their plan for public involvement for a future service change.
So we have 2 months then we're going to Weber.
Yes. So let's.
Why would you move it to the Weber?
Why would I recommend Weber instead of keeping them on Nevada? Well, first of all, this is a bus service that's supposed to be providing 15-minute headway. And that's really important in the city, but to have that efficiency, you have to have all the buses on one street. If I'm trying to catch a bus on Nevada, I'm not particularly a common bus user, and I go out there and I miss the bus, how long do I have to wait? Well, I don't know, because should I stay on Nevada, or should I walk over to Weber? I may not even know that there's a bus on Weber. So I end up waiting 30 minutes. If I have all the buses on one street, that means that you know that you're always going to be able to catch a bus within 15 minutes. And that's really important for running that efficient city bus system.
What about
Also,
moving them back to Cascade?
Wait for it. The buses on Cascade does not serve the areas where the buses really needed to be.
And Nevada does.
Really, it runs from Jackson up to Winter on Cascade right now.
Hospitals on Cascade.
So, I'm recommending buses on Weber for the second reason, is that of all the north-south arterial streets through the old north end, Weber has the lowest traffic counts. If one of your goals in the old north end is that you want to try to even out traffic volumes on your streets, then it only makes sense to put those buses on the street that does have that lowest volume, as long as it meets the other criteria. And the third reason for it is because we're planning on putting bike lanes on Weber. And bike lanes happen to make a very good partner with buses. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, a lot of people use their bikes as either the first or last mile of their trip. They'll ride a bike to the bus stop or ride a bike from the bus stop to where they want to go. So many people use bikes and buses to make that trip. Second, a bike lane gives an extra buffer area so that when a bus pulls over into the loading zone, they have a little bit more room so they don't interfere with through traffic.
Why don't we get the buses to park properly?
Kathleen, have you seen how much damage has been done on Weber because of the one bus line that's there now? Have you seen how many patches have been done on Weber from?
Back to Wasatch and Cascade like they were.
That's something that Mountain Metro's going to need to look at, and the city will need to look at. Weber is on our list to get paved. I would say, I'll just give this as a suggestion. So I come from Denver, and in Denver, every bus stop has a concrete pad. Because when buses pull over and stop and then start again, they have a tendency to tear up pavement. So that's something that we need to start doing on our urban streets, is making sure that buses have that pad that they can use. Next slide. The truck routes. People complained that there were too many trucks on Nevada. They wanted the same truck restrictions that all the other streets in the old North End had, and they wanted more truck enforcement. So I can't complain about any of those requests. I agree. So what we've agreed to do is give Nevada the same truck restriction as all the other streets, meaning that a truck on Nevada needs to be making a delivery in the area or a pickup in the area. We're going to try to increase truck route awareness among our common users. We're not going to detour trucks from I-25 up Nevada, as has been the common practice for years now. Whenever I-25 has to close, we put on the variable message boards to take Nevada. No, we can put on the variable message boards for trucks to take Academy and Circle as their route, rather than
Just to get there.
This is for trucks on I-25 when we have to close I-25 sort of in the middle of town, which unfortunately happens from time to time. Those truckers, instead of using Nevada, need to use Academy or Fillmore and Circle.
So if they're halfway down the street, you should put up a sign, how are they gonna turn around and go back and get on Academy or Circle? How do you get to Circle?
No, if they are a local truck,
Yes.
they can be there if they're having delivery, but Nevada will be taken off the truck route map, and truckers will be told not to use it unless there's a delivery in that area. And if they get stopped and they check where they're going, and it doesn't say on their mandate that they're going to the area, they can be ticketed for that. If they are on I-25, currently what happens with an accident on I-25, we put on the variable message boards as you're coming up to, say, South Nevada, for everyone to get off here, including trucks. What I'm saying is we have to close I-25, the variable message boards before Academy and before Circle will say, truckers exit now.
Yeah, the problem with the current truck route restrictions are that they go all the way through downtown, all the way down to the police station. So a trucker who has a delivery to a restaurant or some other business downtown merrily sails right through the neighborhood and says, well, I have a delivery downtown. It's part of the truck route. I'm allowed to be here because I have a delivery downtown.
And we're going to change that so the restriction is not downtown, but only through the north end, basically north of
Make it through the north end
maybe
of the
north
college.
of Castle Booter. Okay? Now, to do this, I have to go to our truck route committee. How many knew that the city had a truck route committee?
Oh, I do.
There you go. The truck route committee that I have to go to for approval, I have to take it to the Citizens Transportation Advisory Board, and then I will take it to city council. But I will gladly do that to keep Nevada through the Old North End from being that major truck route that often it is today.
So it's okay on Nevada from Uinta north, but Uinta south, it's okay for trucks.
Well, it is as we get to downtown, and so we need to discuss where does that stop and start? Platt?
If you're gonna stop them at Uinta, you need to stop them and put them back on Bijou.
Bijou? Yeah. Well, in Platt, we do have trucks that are coming in off of Platt from the east. So we will work this through with the truck route committee. There'll be adequate public notice when I take it to the truck route committee and when I take it to CPAB so that you can make sure that we're doing the right thing. But on the other hand, guys, when I'm giving you something that you asked for, can you be a little more friendly? Can I Thank you.
Will there be police there monitoring the Nevada for the trucks though?
What was that?
Will there be police there monitoring Nevada? 'Cause I live on Nevada, there's trucks every day.
I'm gonna Commander Mandel was really hoping that he would just get to sit there in his comfortable chair. But I'm gonna make him get up there and questions and answer your questions, okay? Next slide. Parking concerns. The parking concerns are in Nevada were particularly around Penrose Hospital, although in other parts of the Old North End, it was around Colorado College. And then there was also a concern about people parking too close to intersections and interfering with your sight distance. So, here, let's talk about this. First of all, there will be a meeting next week, April 12th. The man in the booth back there, Tim Roberts, is our parking expert, and he's hiding. And he's going to be conducting that meeting. And it's going to be specifically talking about parking around Colorado College, what the problems are, what can be done, that type of thing. I'd like to wait a couple years on Penrose, simply because Penrose Hospital is moving. And so I'd like to see what the new use is going to be. And if they announce the new use before the hospital moves, actually, we can begin talking about it. But before I correct the problem, I want to make sure there's still a problem there. So let's see what's going to happen at Penrose, and we can come back and talk about parking issues around Penrose. Okay? Until then, just, I know, put up with it for another year or two, I guess is what I'm asking. Although I think there are fewer parking problems at Penrose than there are at Colorado College. So we'll practice down at Colorado College. And the last thing was removing parking spaces for improved site distance. We have a city ordinance on how close you should park to an intersection, and we tend not to sign them. But if you find that there are intersections that are a problem, we can put up no parking signs, from here to corner to keep people back a little further. It does limit the number of parking spaces you get per block. So I don't want to just randomly go out and put those signs up throughout the old North End and then have you all yell at me that I've just taken away your favorite parking spot. But do you find on Nevada that that's a common problem? And would you like Nevada to be signed so that people back off from the intersection a little bit, making it easier to see? Wait. We're just doing this study. Let me do it now. Okay.
How many studies do you have to have before somebody kid walks out, not paying attention on their phone and gets killed?
Can you let her finish the presentation and stop interrupting, please?
You're entitled to your opinion.
So,
You're entitled to
I will put in the work order to the science department and ask them to do that for all of the Nevada intersections between Uinta and Jackson. Does that sound about right, everyone?
Cash and fooders, Dad.
You're going the wrong way.
Okay, and do you want to then south through the Colorado College
Yes.
district?
Yes.
to Cash
That's
and
where
Food?
all the parking problems are, right in there.
Okay,
Not on in front of houses.
but we can do that on Cashel Pooter. There's not that many streets there. We can take it down to Cashel Pooter. Does that sound good? Okay, and now do this for me. If you have other intersections that really create site distance problems for you, will you email them to me or write them down on a comment card that's been provided out in the hallway so that we can look at them, okay? Next one. So we had some sort of random comments. They were about noise, crime, homelessness, consolidated traffic pickup. I'm from Denver, that's one of my favorite ones. But they're not really traffic engineering things. I might share your concerns on a couple of them, but I can't really do anything about them. So what I've done is taken those comments that were given to us in August and sent them to the department head or division manager for the appropriate department to look at it. Okay? Hopefully maybe some of those can be worked on in the future. I've got my hands full with you guys with traffic, so I've got to pass that on to someone else. Okay?
Well, the noise is part of traffic, though.
The noise.
Well, it's
Let me guess, the motorcyclists?
the motorcycles, and you have the big brakes that go through.
Yeah. So we did some testing of rubberized asphalt, as other communities have, and found that rubberized asphalt does not last as long as regular asphalt, and didn't provide enough of a difference for people to really go, oh yeah, that's good. It's not the normal day-to-day, although as people slow down, you will hear their cars less. Yay,
But they don't, that's the problem.
But I share your concern about it's Friday night and you're just about to go to sleep and that motorcycle goes down the street just railing and you go, what is, yeah. Trust me, I don't live close to Nevada and I hear the same thing all the time on weekends. And I know that the police get reports on it all the time. I'm going to see if the commander has any words of advice for us, but I don't think that's a problem that is exclusive to Colorado Springs, and I don't think that's a problem that is exclusive to Nevada. There's not a neighborhood in town that would tell you that they wake up Saturday, 2 o'clock in the morning listening to one of those motorcycles. We really don't have a There's not a noise ordinance as far as traffic is concerned. It is a nuisance ordinance for the neighborhood, which is under the planning department for code enforcement. But you can't exactly call code enforcement at 2 o'clock in the morning, so therein lies the problem. But let's see if the community has some ideas for us. Next slide. At last. We're ready for questions and comments, and yes, the questions and comments are being taken down and recorded. I'm ready to hear them all. Would you like Commander Mandel to answer those questions first?
Yes.
Good, because I need to sip some water.
You ready for this rumble?
Yeah. Okay, I just want you to notice that he came armed.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Mandel. I'm the new commander of the Goldville Division, which the Old North End is part of. So let me give you some perspective of the Goldville Division. Goldville Division encompasses the Old North End, almost all the way to Fillmore, all the way to the mountains, east to Union, and then south all the way to Fort Carson, basically. It's a big division. We handle a lot of calls for service. Carson Springs Police Department handles about almost 400,000 calls for service a year. We're the second highest division when it comes to calls for service behind Santa Cruz. We have about roughly 70 officers, and we're fully staffed, which we rarely are, to handle all those calls for service, to handle all the neighborhood complaints, the traffic complaints, all the quality of life issues. We have 2 officers dedicated to traffic enforcement. Their time is mainly handling accident investigations. When they're not doing those investigations, they do and try to go out and do neighborhood traffic enforcement. The city has about 20, I want to say 20 motor officers now, kind of ebbs and flows with our staffing. Those motor officers are primarily our chief speed enforcement officers in the city. So when you see the motor cops, they're the ones that are doing the speed enforcement. We don't have a traffic section or a traffic division, central division for the Carl Springs Police Department. Each patrol division has a couple officers that do traffic and then we have a motor officer. So as you can see, our people are very, very busy. Whenever I go to a neighborhood meeting, traffic complaints are the #1 complaint that I hear. More than violent crime, more than property crimes, more than anything else, it comes down to traffic because it affects your quality of life and it pretty much affects everybody in the neighborhood. Whereas violent crime, it only affects you if you're a victim of it, or if your family member is a victim of it. Property crimes really only impact you if you're a victim. The traffic complaints seem to affect everybody every single day in that neighborhood. So I totally get it, and I respect your passion for those issues. That's kind of my monologue for you guys. Hopefully we'll set the stage for the resources that I have that are available to handle some of your issues and handle some of your complaints. But if you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to try and answer them for you. Yes, sir?
Well, we used to have neighborhood police officers that kind of were assigned to our neighborhood. Any chance that we go back to that again, to have, officers that are somewhat familiar with our environment in our neighborhood?
So we used to have what's called a neighborhood policing unit, and they were assigned, so we'd have a neighborhood policing unit for the Goldville Division, and they would go out and they would do some neighborhood canvassing and get to know the neighborhood. We don't have that anymore. We're still heavily invested in community policing. What we do have is we have officers that are assigned to particular sectors. So the Old North End, North Nevada is one particular sector. So the expectation is the officers that work that sector try to get out and get to know the neighborhood, get to know the business owners in that neighborhood. The problem is we've been so far behind in our staffing that those officers hardly have any free time to do that. They're going from call to call to call to call. And if you ever have the opportunity to listen to a scanner and you get it on the Goldville channel, you'll hear that our officers are going call to call, and the dispatchers are consistently asking the officers, for any officer to clear to handle this, a domestic disturbance, to handle a robbery call. So the mayor has made a pledge to increase our staffing by over 100 officers within the next 5 years. So we're hoping that will have an impact and will allow us, those officers, to get out on foot and get to know the neighborhood and try to solve those neighborhood issues. Yes, sir.
You know, I know the politically correct answer to this is, oh, yes. Kathleen saying that it's going to help traffic by putting up speed limits for the traffic law. Again, I know the political correct answer is sure, but do you really think that lowering the speed limit from 35 to 30 is going to really do anything on the ladder or Cascade?
So I'm not a traffic engineer.
As far as your enforcement,
So let me just answer you in this way. I'm not sure if that would have an impact or not, but what I can say is that lowering speeds will diminish the opportunities for accidents. Mainly those serious accidents where people get injured. So what we see in those injury accidents are travelers driving at a high rate of speed. The rear enders, the lower speed accidents, we're concerned about those because people, their property gets damaged, their car gets damaged, insurance rates go up. All that is concerning, but our biggest and our chief concern is those high speed accidents where people either get seriously injured or they die. So if we can slow speed in any way or fashion, I'll slow it. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate the fact that you have the police officers there during the before school and after school. But if you could have them there from about 5 to 7 in the evening, it would be greatly appreciated. That's when most of the speeding occurs. And if you're out there walking with your children or you're walking with your pets, it's a death trap trying to cross Nevada sometimes. And they don't obey the speed limit. They don't go 35. They didn't go 35 when it's 35, and they certainly don't go 30 now that it's 30. And it really is a death trap trying to cross Nevada some days. And if we could just have a little more police, even just one policeman there from 5 to 7 every night, I think would deter some people from speeding.
And you're talking about Nevada between what?
Nevada and Cache La Poudre. I mean, it's a death trap. Trying to cross there in the evening, if you're walking your dogs or you have children,
Here.
to Fillmore, sorry, to
I do
Fillmore.
have one traffic swing shift officer that works 2 to 10 p.m. And I will try to make that a priority for her to get out there and sit. The reason that we don't have our motorcycles.
She won't be sitting. Sorry, she won't be sitting.
I mean, that would be appreciated, because that's some of the worst times, and that's when the noise, that's when a lot of the big rigs come through, and that's when a lot of the motorcycles come through, and God bless them, the thump, 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 we like to enjoy their music, but, you know.
So I don't supervise or I don't oversee our motorcycle officers, but I will get with the commander and see if we can maybe get some motorcycle officers out there. Now that it's light during those hours of the day, just so you know, we won't put our motorcycle officers out working at night because it's so dangerous for them. But during the summer months and now that it's starting to stay light past 7 o'clock, I will see if we can extend their hours of operation.
Well, thank you.
Just so you have
I just got a quick question about parkways. At the previous meeting, the one that we had in the golf course, there was a discussion about shaving a lot of feet off of the parkways at the corners. Are we still discussing that, or what are we doing with the parkways?
Say that again.
The parkways, what's going on with the parkways? Are the medians going to not be cut up, or are they staying the same?
The medians, I will try to have a meeting probably in May. And we will talk about the medians and what kind of process you need to do as like a city to change any of the historic medians. Currently, you have to go to the Parks Board. If we need to like make a left turn lane longer, that would go into a historic median. So we currently have to go to the Parks Board, but we've never set up any criteria for the Parks Board on what would be a good idea for changing a median and what would be a bad idea for changing the median. So I thought as long as I've got a group listening to me, this would be a good idea to discuss that and see if the neighborhood has some ideas on when that would be good, when it would help traffic, that type of thing, or do you never want to change the median? So look for a meeting in May to discuss that. Let me make a couple of announcements before we go on with comments. If you're going to skip out early, that's okay, but if you skip out early, if you have a comment card, leave it at the desk for us, or if you grab a comment card on the way out, feel free to mail it into the city. and we'll get your comments. Also, on things that we were not able to really reach any sort of conclusion on, like pedestrian crossings, if you have an idea, put it on a comment card and send it to me so that we can begin to get an idea of what might be a good way to go. And with that, we'll go back to questions. Yeah.
Yeah, can you step back a little bit and talk about what the rationale is to keep any of these in our arterial access to downtown now that we've got Kiowa and we've got a nice new intersection in Colorado? I don't think anybody's arguing more traffic is good. And I don't understand if we can't close off Cascade and close off Nevada and give that back to the college, why this neighborhood can't just be exit only?
The streets that we're talking about are Wasatch, Weber, Nevada, and Cascade. They were listed originally in the city as principal arterials. That's just sort of silly because that's way too many principal arterials. They have now all been, they were all minor arterials in the city standard. That means that I can worry a little less about traffic flow. I can slow the speeds down to 30 miles an hour, that type of thing on minor arterials.
I mean, it's outgrown,
Wait,
the city's
wait,
outgrown
wait.
this,
Let me catch
this
my
neighborhood
breath.
and the reason for these arterials.
Let me catch my breath. These arterial streets were put originally, especially in Nevada, as I said, as a state highway. And because they were built on that glorious grid system, which I really do appreciate and love, but you don't need that many arterial streets and you don't need that many lanes. And as I've said in the past, we have way too many lanes across the old North End. So,
Are you kidding me? Really? You're adding more people and you're going to shut down lanes? Come on. Think about what you're saying.
Stop.
Stupid. That is absolutely ridiculous. You're wanting more people and you're shutting the lane down. Come on.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss the number of lanes. That's it. Another question?
Oh, that's great. There you go. You're going to shut, you want us to put more people there and you're shutting the lane down.
Isn't that why we're here?
That's why we're here. We don't want you to do that. Stop doing that. It didn't work up north on research because the people didn't want it. You got these people here, which we don't want it. What's the problem? What's wrong with it?
Research, they shut it down. They never gave it a chance.
They didn't even give it a chance.
Are you a Nevada resident, sir?
I'm a resident of Colorado and I've got property all around here. Yes, yes we do.
What I want to say though is, I think we should hear from everybody. Because you're speaking, you're saying you don't want narrowing of lanes. There are a lot of people in this room that do. And
That's great. You can speak to her, not me, ma'am. You can speak to her.
I think
Speak to her.
we should all
Speak to her.
ourselves.
Speak to her. I'm speaking to her, not you. I'm speaking to her. Okay? I'm not speaking to you.
We're allowed to say our end as
This is
well.
our opinion.
Stop.
I don't want to just hear the other side.
If I wanted to.
I'm not talking to you.
Go home where the ground is. Now stop now. We're not going to have a brawl here tonight.
I'm glad
Let
you
me
spoke
tell
up and
there's
spoke up as
already
loudly as you
been a decision
did.
made, and
Right?
I will be narrowing Cascade down to one lane in each
Climbed into
direction
bed with
this
Colorado
month.
College.
If we don't have done, and we can talk again later to determine if that was good, is this good, should we do it?
Well, what
something
happens
else?
in Nevada then, if you narrow Cascade?
Yeah.
More
We
traffic.
are not,
Oh, well, see?
the federal standards, and they tend to be a lot more conservative.
backing
Federal
down.
standards are that any road that has less than 20,000 vehicles per day is eligible for road dividing down to 2 lanes.
That's us.
That's the national standard, 20,000 vehicles a day. Cascade at its busiest point in this section has 11,000 vehicles per day. It certainly is well within the range that can be a 2-lane street.
That
We
doesn't
are
mean it's
not
desirable.
expecting traffic to go from Cascade to Nevada because.
Where are they
Where
going?
Where are you going to put them?
Where?
You
What
know,
I am expecting,
you showed accident numbers
What
for
I am
Nevada and
expecting-
fatalities on Nevada,
What
but you
I
haven't
am-
showed us on Cascade, on Weber, or Wasatch, or what's gonna happen in Nevada when those all get narrowed.
what I am expecting,
Yes, where are your statistics that back this? You didn't even show up with statistics at the last meeting. Where are they at?
Hey, wait, the statistics, if you didn't look, there's Nevada, the entire North End. Okay, you weren't reading it.
No.
Sir, North End.
Order, sir. Allow Ms. Craig to speak. You have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask a question, and do it civilly. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I actually am expecting, and we'll take traffic counts and see if this comes out, is I am expecting a slight increase of traffic on Cascade, because at the same time, we will be removing the flashing pedestrian lights from Cascade.
You're talking NCC, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking the whole north end.
CC, they remove at Cascade. You don't zigzag through the old north end.
And goes downtown, not off up by the hospital, it comes down.
Sir,
Okay.
what did I just ask you? Please raise your hand.
Is this meeting for you or for us?
Okay.
Is this meeting for you or for
She's
us?
gonna end this meeting if you can't get your
Raise your
emotions
hand.
under control.
I
So
think my
I'm
motions are
asking
fine.
you-
Wait a second.
Who are you to say
I
she's
have a
in?
nice loud mic and I'm willing to use it. So Kim is going to hold the microphone.
you're doing
People are
this?
going to raise their hand and they're only going to speak in the microphone. And if not, then we can stop the meeting early. There's always other things to do on a nice evening like tonight.
And for us too. Yeah, we wouldn't be here if you were. We wouldn't be here if we thought you weren't gonna
I'm
listen.
sorry, sir, let's let this lady ask her question, please.
I have an understanding that on a minor arterial road, there cannot be driveways that go from the houses into the roads. So why is that why are you just ignoring that law?
Okay.
About the minor, and then the other
And
thing.
did all of you hear her question about
Yeah.
driveways? That's very true. That's our current standards today. But in the late 1800s, they put driveways on no matter how busy they thought the street might become. And we have principal arterials all over town that have driveways on them. I wish I didn't, and I wish I could do something about it, but I do. But our current standards today, so when we're building something new out on the edge of town, I do not allow driveways on, I don't even allow driveways on collectors. Residential driveways are for local only. But I can't go back. The solution would have to be that I would go and buy all those houses so that I could have a wider street. I can't do that, and I don't want to do that. But you are not, Nevada is not the only street that is a minor arterial. There are many principal arterials I have around town that have driveways on them. I'm sorry, it was done long before current standards were written, but that doesn't mean that I could just, I could stand up tomorrow morning and put in the Gazette, I declare Nevada a local street. And it would not change the volume of traffic on Nevada at all. So I've got to work with what I got.
But it's a law.
No, it's not the law. It's a standard for anything new that's built.
Okay, well, the other thing I want to say, one more thing. My daughter spent 8 years at the University of Southern California. Very busy roads that did not get shut down. Our road dieted. The students took care of it. They couldn't ride their bicycle across the road. They had to stop. They get ticketed. Yeah, and they shut down no major streets. They road dieted no streets, and it's way busier. Okay, it's a way busier university.
And if Cascade were a busier street, then I wouldn't road diet.
I live on North Nevada and for the last 32 years. First of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting this meeting and giving us an opportunity to express our concerns. I also want to thank you for the efforts you're making in the short term to reduce traffic on Nevada to make it safer, specifically reducing the speed limit. And I think all of us should be following your suggestion and driving with 30 miles an hour. If we're expecting other people to do it, then we must all do it as well. I also appreciate that you're keeping the grade variations of intersections, that you're rerouting the trucks, that's no longer going to be a truck detour, and that you're moving the buses so the less busy street has that burden of traffic. I think one of the main difficulties was reflected in the parapraxis or Freudian slip that occurred earlier when we referred to Nevada as a four-lane highway. And our fear is that with the development, especially of the new North Nevada, it's going to become, be seen by the city more and more as a thoroughfare rather than as a residential street. And if it remains as a 4-lane highway, then that's certainly going to happen. So we have a solution for you, and a petition that 300 of us have signed, residents of Nevada, which basically states, read the undersigned on the City of Colorado Springs to implement fully all items listed in the Onan Street Safety Proposal, which was adopted unanimously by the Onan Board of Directors on February 21st, 2018, so that our entire neighborhood can benefit equally in accordance with the Onan Master Plan. The city's transportation plan does not go far enough to address adequately the immediate safety concerns of our busiest street, North Nevada. The city's plan is incomplete and was developed with input provided by only a small portion of our neighborhood. The city must formally assure the Onan neighborhood that it will endorse, adopt, and fully implement the Onan Street Safety Proposal, which was developed by the residents and leaders of our neighborhood. And specifically, that proposal was to promote equitable distribution of traffic flow on our arterial streets while improving pedestrian, light, auto, and transit safety. Number one, temporarily reduce Cascade from 4 lanes to 2 travel lanes with protected bike lanes. Number two, after 1 year, evaluate changes in traffic patterns and either A, revert Cascade back to 4 travel lanes, or B, make the changes on Cascade permanent while simultaneously reducing North Nevada and Wasatch within Onan to 2 travel lanes. As long as we're 4 lanes, we're always going to be seen as a highway.
I want to thank you for all the work that Onan Board put into that and for the petitions that signed. I certainly take your work very seriously, and I will try to look at that as a guidance for the future as I go forward with the Old North End. Okay? You mentioned the North Nevada study, and I just want to real quickly give you some reassurance on that, even though when you talk about redevelopment, that can be really scary. But if you just look at the roadway of North Nevada between Fillmore and Garden of the Gods, it is narrowing it down to 2 lanes in each direction with 1 center left turn lane, not a dual left turn lane or anything, and bringing the buildings in close to either side of it. I think that is a much more neighborhood-friendly approach to a road that will serve a commercial, manufacturing, light industrial area. It's not the big, fast freeway section that is currently built out there. It will lower speeds on that section of North Nevada when it's built, and I think it's all in all a good plan that can do really nothing but help the old North End section of Nevada. Because at the moment, up at University Village, you have something that is built that handles a lot of traffic and handles it at a very high speed. And then the section from Garden of the Gods to Fillmore only has 2 signalized intersections, no real interruption, and 4 lanes with an extra wide median, I mean wider than even in your area. And it just encourages very high speeds through there. So I really hope that as we proceed with that section of North Nevada, it can do nothing but help you establish the old North End back as being a true residential area. Okay?
Okay, we have a question back here.
Sure.
I appreciate your thoughts, but unless you actually live on Nevada and hear the day-to-day traffics and the people parking, it's hard to understand. And I understand, I sympathize with you because you don't live on Nevada. But the people that live on Nevada, we pay the same taxes as the people that live on Cascade, the people that live on Wood, and the people that live on Weber, and the people that live on Wasatch. But I kind of feel like we're treated as the lesser of all those other peoples. And if you could just get law enforcement there, all we really need is steady law enforcement to slow down the traffic, to slow down stop the trucks. That would help immensely. And that's all we're asking for is, I mean, you could change Cascade, you can change Wood, which you've already done, you can change other streets, but unless you have people there deterring the speeders and deterring the trucks that we see every day drive past our homes, nothing's gonna change.
So,
It's ju-
there are certain things that I can do as a city traffic engineer, and while I would gladly take on being police chief as well, I think it'd be fun.
I appreciate that.
But I can't do that. However, what I can do is provide data to the police to let them know what would be most effective on Nevada.
And that would be-
So that when they do have the time to be out there, it's a time that is really useful. And you have the best commander that you could have in the city. The Gold Hill substation is my best station.
Well, and
I will let them know
And I appreciate that.
what that is.
But I live on Carabeo, Nevada, and I see the policemen out there, they're in the, going to school and after school. And I see the police enforcement that is there, and I see how many people they stop on a regular basis in the morning and at night. If we could have that same type of enforcement between 5 and 7, it might actually deter people from going down Nevada at the rate that they do. And I have one more question, and I would like to know what the fatality rate is of the people that live on Wood, what the fatality rate of traffic accidents is on Cascade, what the fatality rate is on Weber, and what the fatality rate is on Wasatch compared to the fatality rate on Nevada.
The last 5 years, the only fatalities we've had in the North End have been the 3 on Nevada. That's not always been the case in history. We have had fatalities on Cascade as well, especially pedestrian fatalities. So, but I just have that 5-year piece of information to work with right now.
But
But those fatalities have a tendency to involve drinking, distracted driving, and driving too fast.
But
So,
once
and that
again,
can happen on any street.
but that, again, once again, that tells me that the people that live on Nevada, the tax-paying citizens that live on Nevada are at a greater risk. So you're willing to lower Cascade to 1 lane for the sake of the college students or the people that live on Cascade, but we're still highly at risk of the people that live on Nevada because we don't have the college students that come up Nevada. What is the reasoning for your excuse for not paying attention to Nevada?
I do have a serious problem on Colorado, on Cascade at Colorado College that I do need to take care of.
But they're grown adults.
That does not mean.
Been through this before.
Take it on, they're grown adults.
That does not mean that I don't care about Nevada. That doesn't mean I don't care about Nevada.
And I said
that
putting
that
everybody
all
over there.
11,000 vehicles from Nevada are going to come, or from Cascade are going to come over to Nevada. If we see that happen, we're going to do something immediately.
Well, I appreciate that, and I sympathize with the college students that cross Nevada. But they cross illegally, once again. If law enforcement was there, if that was all part of the problem.
Ma'am, I give you the microphone.
I appreciate that, thank you. Yeah.
The microphone.
I'm Dave Smith, I live on Cascade, have for 35 years. My biggest concern with what you're trying to do on Cascade is diet it, reduce it down to 42, without criteria.
What?
Without criteria. You're going to have, at some point, to make a decision, maybe you or the city council or somebody, but you won't have the facts.
Well,
Let me finish.
no, we will gather facts.
Right now.
Where are they at before?
All right, you're an engineer.
Yes.
I'm an engineer.
Yes.
Okay? This is an engineering problem.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you use an engineering process for estimating or coming up with a solution? Among the top 3 things that you do is always determine requirements or criteria. You test that criteria, but you identify the criteria up front, not after the fact. That's what's happening now. I have not heard.
Right. Where's the statistics at? Where are they at?
I believe
She doesn't have any.
would support a decision based on facts, not political, not emotion.
Right.
Thirdly, I'd like to see a third-party, independent engineering traffic study done before this goes into effect, during your striking, and after, so we have some basis for a fact-based decision.
Hi, I'm Becky Fuller. I lived on Nevada for 16 years and this issue chased my family away. I'd like to really understand, I think what's being missed here is that for 20 years or more, Colorado College has been trying to narrow Cascade through their campus. And it's been shut down by the neighborhood many, many times, including 2 years ago, where it went lightning speed through the Parks Board, and then got shut down at the Planning Commission, and here we are, it's like Groundhog's Day. 2 years later, we're shoving it through. I hear about my former Old North End board members shutting people down that don't agree with them and taking them off the board. I think that what's missing here is the trust relationship has not been built. When you talk about removing Nevada as a truck route, that happened 10 years ago. I don't think that happened because of you, that happened because of Dave Munger. You and I had quite a finagling getting that traffic signal moved for Steele to include Espanola, including being shut down, quite frankly, after you gave the year where you would do it. That doesn't build trust to me. I think integrity matters. I don't think that's been built here. It's really, it bothers me to see people misled. I mean, the traffic studies show that exactly 3.5 years after all those ridiculous flashers were installed at Colorado College, the kids were trained not to be afraid of traffic and got hit by cars all the time. Well, if that is such a big safety issue, why are they removed now? I mean, this is years and years and years later. It feels like they're playing games, and for us, this isn't a game. These are, our homes. We pick up after 16 years and move my kids to a new neighborhood, which is fabulous, by the way. But I miss my neighbors, and it makes me sad to know that all the things that I could see coming a year and a half ago, they're seeing today, and it's really painful. And I am sorry to all of you because it's really not fair.
We miss
And
you
you
too.
deserve that.
I promise the gentleman who wants to own bikes on Nevada.
I live at Nevada and Espanola. I have been to the city council. I have been to the city traffic engineer. I've been to everybody I can. In 45 years, I've been to federal court a number of times. You're going to have a child die at that intersection. And unless I yell and continue it, and each of you take up the cry, we're all going to have that child's death at that intersection on our heads. The bureaucrats, the regs, to heck with it. Judge Mate would give you a temporary injunction going around some of the claptrap in a heartbeat.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening, and thanks for being here. My name is Jim Riley. I'm 2100 block in Nevada. Been here for about 10 years. First thing, Commander, you guys have a tough job. We really appreciate it. I'm shocked to hear you all that. Really, I just have two suggestions that are fairly small in nature, but they may come as a way to apply a little bit of prejudice to our problem. And there are things that we can do now, I think, without really having other resources. One is we have existing lights on Nevada. One of the things that we have in the area that we live in is on the weekends, particularly unimpeded, very high-speed traffic moving down Nevada heading south. One thing that could slow them down was just time those lights, so that we could slow them down to where they have to at least come to a stop at some point. Right now, there's nothing stopping them for over a mile and a half, and that's a nice race course.
Here, here.
Before you go, tell people that, you know, when I talk about, well, we've got ways of maybe moving traffic and that type of thing. We don't like to admit, but that's one of the things that sometimes we end up having to do if we're having a problem on the street. We currently have Nevada well progressed, so that you can, if you're going the posted speed limit, and by the way, we've changed it from 35 to 30, if you're going the posted speed limit, you can drive Nevada and pretty consistently hit all green lights. But you're right, there are times that we can certainly throw a red light at you to slow traffic down, and the weekend's going very well. Or later in the evening might be one of those ways to do that.
And the second suggestion I have is one that, recognizing that continuous enforcement is going to be almost impossible with the load you guys have to deal with, particularly in Gold Creek, that what could be applied would be periodic enforcement, just to focus, very similar to an alcohol breath stop. You know, so you could go out and just periodically just focus on specific times. For example, the first one I would suggest would be anytime from 7 to 11 on Saturday night in the south or north on Nevada. The city will reap a great deal of money. But that would send a message. And, you know, if we just did it for, say, 3 hours every 2 months or 3 months, whatever you could afford to devote, recognizing that there are other needs and other obligations we have to fit. I think that would finally get some of the notice out there. One of the problems we have is that if you drop the speed limits, it's not enforced, it's meaningless, and that's part of the problem we're dealing with.
Especially when nothing.
Those are my two suggestions.
Here, here.
And I'm wondering, Kathleen, how much you think that a false sense of security contributes to the accidents, the problems that the Colorado college students are having?
It's actually a huge amount, and it's caused by the flashing lights.
Take them out.
Those,
They
well,
have to
yes,
be.
exactly.
She's taking them out.
We'll do it as soon as I get strike. The flashing lights cause the students to think that they don't need to look for cars. On the other hand, the lights by federal law flash for the entire time it takes a student to walk from one curb all the way across the median to the other curb. So they flash much longer than they need to, and it gives the drivers the impression that they flash when there's no students around. So it gives a false impression to both the drivers and the students, and the results are not good. And we've had an increase of pedestrian accidents since those flashing lights went in. I cannot take those flashing lights out unless, if it's a 4-lane street, I have to put in mid-block pedestrian signals, or take it down to a 2-lane street to have a normal crosswalk. That's what I need to do as a good conscientious traffic engineer and following federal guidelines for safety. We did a model study to determine which would be best for the drivers on Cascade, not the students, let them figure it out, but the drivers. And the result was that the drivers would take a longer period of time to drive Cascade if they were having to wait for the red light at mid-block crosswalks than if they were just waiting when a student was crossing the crosswalk. If that doesn't work, we will have to try something else. But according to best practices of traffic engineering, that's the best thing I can do to that location at this time.
My second question is, don't you think that taking Cascade down to a single lane will actually contribute to a false sense of security?
Yep.
I don't. The majority, in fact, not only the majority, but all of the pedestrian accidents that we have had on Cascade since those flashing lights have been a pedestrian stepping out, and the first car stops for them, and the second car doesn't see them because they're hidden, and the second car hits them. Those accidents go away, and that's why all of the federal standards for traffic engineering say do not have an unprotected crosswalk on 4 lanes of traffic.
But any pedestrian that goes and stops before they go across the second lane won't get hit. So I think that a large part of it getting hit in the second lane is because they think, oh, well, one car is stopped, so now the second lane is free. So
You know,
it's their responsibility.
you would think that, but it's not true, because just as the pedestrian is hidden by the car that stops for them, the pedestrian can't see the car that's coming because of the car that's stopping them. And in case it even happens with cars. Have any of you been in the situation where you're turning out into a multi-lane street and the guy in the lane closest to you stops so that he's not blocking your intersection and waves at you and says, yeah, come on, we can turn. And you go to do it and the car in the second lane smacks you. Yeah, my husband has had that accident. My father had that accident. I, of course, not. But it's a really common accident to have. And it's the same thing that happens to pedestrians when they're crossing the road. Okay, I've got a picture back here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having this meeting. I want to follow up with just a brief point that the gentleman from the 2100 block mentioned, which is, I know since we lowered the speed limits throughout the neighborhood, that the light on Del Norte and Cascade has changed its timing. And that light has changed to intermittent to red, and that our light on Nevada has not. So I was hoping that you'd commit to changing both of them in sync. And the second one deals with the two-lane problem, which is with those bump outs that you mentioned earlier that we've got on Nevada. Just dealing with those, even at a normal rate of speed, people often have to swerve around them. Those of us who know the road know that it's filled with potholes, even if that's fixed. It makes it very challenging to drive that road with the narrow lanes that we've got. I still don't understand that there's been no real justification why that's the road that means the 2 lanes on each side, as opposed to Cascade, which is a smooth lane, has very little car parking on the side, runs with 1 lane. And I think I speak for a lot of people saying this idea that reducing Cascade is not going to affect Nevada. I feel like it is going to increase in Nevada, so I would hope you
You're going to get with the numbers next year and look at it and...
Well, I just asked you to submit to change in Nevada to 1 lane if we see any increase in traffic.
Here.
Don't make commitments like that. Let's see what happens and see where it goes. Okay?
My name's Charles Doolittle. I live on the corner of Nevada and Montanero. I've been there 37 years. A couple comments. Initially, when we talked about Nevada, I thought that I was in the wrong meeting. But apparently, we're getting down to the issues now. Okay. And most of the things that have been discussed, I think we all agree, it's dangerous for the pedestrians, it's dangerous for the commuters, dangerous for the neighborhood residents, and all that's a factor. When we start considering some of those statistics, and I don't want to go into all of them, but some of the ones I do know about, for instance, in that one strip of road, the 1.4 miles of the Old North End, is one of the most dangerous streets in the city, statistically. It also, if you're driving on that street, you have 39.5 more chances of dying than you do on a normal street given the whole city of Colorado. So it is dangerous. We know it is. And the last thing we want to do is subject our children, our pets, our neighborhood, or the commuters to anything that's more intense on the street. For that reason, we've talked about in our different meetings the safety side. And I feel there's a little bit of disconnect in the whole neighborhood. We're a historical district, and yet we seem to be a little bit fragmented because this special group wants this, and this one wants that, and this one wants that, and I understand that, we all do. But when we get right down to it, we have to look at all the issues, and we have to make it work. The National Historic District that we're in is, it's amazing when you think about it. It is the largest residential district west of the Mississippi. It's the oldest west of the Mississippi as well. It also has a 501c3 organization. They're organized so that, you know, it's nonprofit. There are a lot of things that have been going on in this area for a long, long time. And we feel like we need to kind of come together and preserve that. Now, a lot of people feel that if this road's constricted, it's going to put more traffic on another. Now, obviously, you don't think that, and I think one of our big concerns is that we have assurance that if that happens, it'll be evaluated. Things have happened, for instance, I found out about the bus stop in front of my house when I walked home from work one day.
And you could have taken the bus.
I could have taken the bus, I could, but nobody can come see me and park in front of my house because there's no parking in front of my house. But they told me, had I just checked, online somewhere, Facebook would have told me that. Well, a lot of us are probably not as Facebook savvy as some of the others, but it'd be nice to know if the bus is going to be moved to my house. Now, that's just an illustration, and the point is we need to be updated, we need to know what's happening, and we need to feel comfortable. And I'm as concerned about the historical neighborhood being united as opposed to fragmented. It appears to me that Nevada's kind of the spine of the neighborhood, just like the body. If the spine's no good, the body's having trouble. Same thing. We want to keep it healthy, we want to make it work. So that's a big concern. I feel like there are people that, quite frankly, have special interests that are trying to push things their way without thinking about the big picture. In my mind, if we road size or safety size, whatever you want to call it, some without the others, and let's try this and see what happens. Let's do something even if it's wrong. But that's not a very good way to do it. Our comments that we got from the mayor when we sent the emails, the consistent comment was, I quote, "Safety and the well-being of our citizens are our utmost importance." It wasn't worded quite right, but that's the way it was written. So I see that, and we're talking safety, but are we really? Do we want to maintain the safety in the neighborhood? If we're going to ignore the historical district and just let this be freeway, then maybe we could take that statue of General Palmer down, because he's up there obstructing a left-hand turn. He could turn much easier if he was there. And he's really holding there for his historical significance. So we've got a historically significant place here that we'd like to maintain, because I feel if you safety size some streets and you don't safety size Nevada, you're danger sizing Nevada.
Let me give you a level of reassurance that I have the utmost respect and admiration for the Old North End and the neighborhood that you live on. I've told you that I come as an adult from Denver, and that's where most of my experience as a traffic engineer. Go back. But what I haven't, what I haven't told you is that in Denver, I lived in a historic house within a historic neighborhood, and one block off of a current state highway, and that was Colfax Avenue, or US 40, which, by the way, carries about 43,000 vehicles a day through my old neighborhood instead of 17,000 vehicles a day. So trust me, I really admire the Old North End, appreciate it, and want to do everything to make sure that you are living in a comfortable residential neighborhood as much as I can, because I want that historic neighborhood to be preserved, not to be destroyed. So as we do anything, we will be gathering the evidence of what happens and why. What makes traffic engineering different than structural engineering or water engineering is that you don't really get those exact facts that you do in those forms of engineering, because about 50% of traffic engineering is actually psychology of how people drive. And if only they would drive as they were told to, then I could do this all facts, but they don't. So we can try these things. We can look at what happens with the traffic, and you have my assurance. I might not do exactly what you want me to do, but I definitely will do something to try to correct the problem.
Yeah, what happens if we're too large?
Okay, I'm gonna take this gentleman's question over here. I see you've got about 3 people over there. You can rest for a minute. I'll be over there in a second.
Hi, Ms. Gregory. Peter France, 12-year resident of Nevada. I want to thank you for 3 things in that question. First of all, thanks for the statement you made a minute ago that you'll continue to consider additional solutions to Nevada. It's a concern that a lot of us have had because in watching these presentations, it has seemed like the culmination of a 30-year study that might be the end of things, and we don't want to let that happen. We want to continue working with you.
Tell your kids to become traffic engineers, because the wonderful thing is you never improve something and then it just stays that way. Traffic engineering is a continuum, so we have to consider that.
Okay, the second thing is thanks for your work to promote the enforcement of the park restrictions that a couple of years ago. And then third, thanks for the speed limit concessions. I hope that we can work to make those effective. I'm a little bit pessimistic about it. You know, I've been studying the issue, and anyone who's interested in this, there are interesting reports from the FHWA online. You know, they've studied the effects of changing speed limits, and it looks like motorists really don't respond to the signs. They respond to geometry, and so that's what gets to my question. So, you know, in 2013, the Colorado College did a transportation master plan. I think you were involved in that. Todd Davey authored it. And it was the recognition of that plan to safety size all 4 streets across the neighborhood. At that time, we had 15,700 cars per day on Nevada around Fontana. In 2016, you too recommended it. That was part of your plan. At that time, we had 16,007 cars per day, holding pretty steady. I think that's within the uncertainty of measurement. Also in 2016, when you addressed the Planning Commission, you made a prediction that came true. You said at the Planning Commission that you expected when the new interchange at Cimarron and Fillmore opened, that the number of cars through the neighborhood would drop. And it did. And January 31st of this year, there was a traffic count measurement on 3 positions along Nevada, as well as the other streets. In that measurement, we had 13,500 cars on Nevada. So we're now in a position, 13,500, barely over 14,000, even south of Uinta. Well under the threshold for applying traffic control measures like safety sizing. My first question is, this looks like a technically appropriate solution. So what are the impediments?
You know, I was seriously shot down. I mean, seriously shot down 2 years ago when I recommended road dieting all the streets in the old North End. There's still a couple of wounds that bleed every once in a while from that shot. But the truth of the matter is that those who have to try to manage me, which, excuse me, that's more like reining me in most of the time, say, please, don't go so big. Would you just do one step at a time? Let me do one step at a time and let people see what the reaction is. If my fear is that based on what I saw in 2016, if I were to recommend road dieting all of those streets again, you would have a huge number of people that from not in your neighborhood coming to city council to scream that I have just ruined downtown and that type of thing. One of the things that we learn in traffic engineering when you're trying to correct a problem is to do one little thing at a time and then wait and watch it and see if it helped the correction. And then if it didn't go the exact way you wanted, then you put in the second little thing and then you put in the third little thing. I can't guarantee what's going to happen in the future, but let's do what we have planned. I think it will work, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, there are still years out there to do other things as well.
Okay, thank you. Can I just quickly address 2 of those points? I was at that meeting in 2016. Well, I was at a planning commission meeting, in 2016, it was unpleasant.
Did you find my pride or
Well,
anything in the book? Because I think I
Well,
lost it.
yeah, so the only thing I wanted to make sure you understand, that meeting was for just safety sizing Cascade through the CC campus. I've gone back to watch it multiple times, it's online. So I hope you understand that there were people at that meeting who were angry because you were only going to do Cascade through CC, and we wanted a comprehensive solution for the entire neighborhood. We didn't want to let that go as just a piece. We wanted to see a comprehensive solution to the whole neighborhood. So that meeting, if you felt attacked, and I understand where you're coming from, it was not a meeting for safety sizing the entire neighborhood. It was just for Cascade through the CC campus. And I forgot what your second one was, but I appreciate your comments. And then one other question. At CTAP a couple months ago, one of the board members asked if you would be monitoring qualitative effects. And I understand watching speeds and numbers of cars and things like that, but can you tell me what qualitative effects you're monitoring through this process?
Sure, we will be doing speed studies and volume studies on all of the streets through the north end. We also will be monitoring the length of queues and delays at signalized intersections and looking at all that. What I don't want to do is publish a notebook that says, if the traffic volumes here exceeds this, or if the traffic volumes here go below this, I'll do this and this. Traffic engineering is there's a lot of things that go into it, and I don't want to try to turn everyone into the city into the expert that says, that's it. We reached that number one car, and so you've got to do this next thing. Give me a little bit more room to maneuver than that. And for those of you that keep thinking I'm doing a one-time study, I might point out, if you've been following things in the north end, you saw me in 2012, which was my first year as a city traffic engineer. You saw me in 2013, you saw me in 2016, you saw me in 2017, and I'm still here in 2018. I will still be here looking at the old north end and working on it.
Okay, my question is, we're sort of dancing around this. I fully agree with Dr. Doolittle and the gentleman who just spoke, and Fletcher. But we aren't answering the one question that I haven't heard yet, and that is, who benefits the most from keeping Nevada Avenue as a 4-lane road? And I'll tell you who does. Follow the money. It's the Downtown Partnership, it's the Renew North Nevada, and people trying to do something about the south end of Nevada. It's a commercial interest. That's who's benefiting. It's not us, not pedestrians, not commuters, not bicyclists, commercial interests. Keeping our street as a high-volume 4-lane road brings in more customers. More customers mean they sell more of their crap. And they do it on our backs. They do it on that child that this gentleman is right, will eventually end up dead in the middle of the street. That's what they're doing it on. So admit that you have chosen moneyed interests over the neighborhood.
I'm sorry, I can't admit that.
Here,
Hi, I have a question. First of all, the speed limit signs. There was no notification, no indication besides the changing from 30 to 35, so a driver would have to pay attention. Because I was out of town and I came back and I was like, was it 30? Before 35. So I don't think that we're getting the results we want because we haven't notified the drivers. This is a change in the speed limit. So I get it's through the signs, but maybe for a short period, having those indicators saying, you know, this is the speed you're going to, for just a short period, maybe 2 months, to make sure that everyone knows. Another thing is on Halloween night, right as the kids were stopping, at Del Norte Light, a car came too fast, went into the median and crashed. The guy was unconscious. This is what we're experiencing down there. And you're right, that was Halloween night. probably 9 o'clock. Another thing is when you're changing the patterns, and you said that we would do traffic studies again on Nevada, and you said, well, every 6 months. I think when the change occurs, we should be doing it at least every 3 months so that you can gather that data very quickly to see the traffic changes. And another thing that I've noticed from these meetings, because I've come to quite a few of them, I hear voices of the community, but I feel like the decisions have been made, and they're all. So with that, I'm just saying that you're saying, if it doesn't work out, we'll change things. How do we believe you when we don't feel heard now?
Well, I certainly hope that when we went through those slides tonight and looked at your concerns and looked at the solutions, that we are really trying to listen to the neighborhood and do a variety of things. But you're also right in that I am the city traffic engineer. I carry the professional liability on my license for the city as a city traffic engineer, and I do ultimately have to make the decisions. And that's part of this job, and I will continue to do that. As far as advance notice on speed changes, that is typically not done. It's not recommended by federal standards to advance change. So the only one that we recommend changes on are stop controls and signals, and we give advance notice on those. So for example, if a new stop sign goes in, you might see flashing red lights and a red flag, that type of thing. Speed is something that you're supposed to be looking at that speed limit all the time. However, I think what might be nice, and I will ask our city communications to help with this, is maybe some additional information in the Gazette or on television that the speed limits have changed in North Nevada, and you better be aware of it because the police are enforcing it, that type of thing.
I think a sign that the neighborhood would really appreciate that is that someone has actually made a homemade sign saying, please notice that. So I know on Constitution, I believe, there's a big sign flashing there when people are speeding. And I do take note of that when I'm there. I look down and I say, wow, what am I going? I want to know, because I don't want to speed through someone's neighborhood. So for a very short period of time, the city has those things, just to put them out to let people know, especially before summer comes, when all the children are playing and have no school to play.
I actually don't have any of those speed trailers under my control, but wait, I know somebody who does. So I'll see if I can't beg for one on that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Taya, and I live on North Nevada. And I just want to say that I think some areas that we can come together on are concern over speeders on Nevada, noise on Nevada, and not encouraging trucks except for delivery trucks to be on Nevada. And as a traffic engineer, I'm wondering, this might seem like a really stupid question, but would speed bumps kind of deter all those things?
I get that question a lot. Colorado Springs used to put in speed bumps, and that is one thing when they said, Kathleen, come be our city traffic engineer, I warned them that I would not put in speed bumps. I will do other traffic calming efforts on local streets only. But on a street that is anywhere above 25 miles an hour, you put in a speed bump, you risk someone hitting that way too hard and having a very serious accident. For example, last winter in Woodland Park, a 16-year-old was killed because she didn't know a speed bump was there and hit it too hard and too fast. Speed bumps have been shown not to really affect speed anywhere except at the bump. And at the bump, what happens to you if you're the unfortunate soul that has the house right next to the bump, you get to hear the thump all day long. And the more volume you have on your road, the more the thumps you have. So I'm gonna do you all a favor and say, I'm not gonna put a speed bump in. I won't take your whoop-de-doos out, but I'm not gonna put a speed bump in.
So what, as a traffic engineer, what does slow people down and deter trucks?
Okay, well, deterring trucks is a matter of establishing a good truck route and enforcing that good truck route, and we're really trying to do that. As far as, and we have, by the way, you don't know this, but we have a new computer system that hands out the truck permits for trucks that are coming into town and have to establish their route. And it's a much more stringent one and much easier to relay the information to people. But now, back to the question of what can you do. The gentleman that talked about the federal standards have shown that people drive based on how the road is designed and not the speed limit was absolutely correct. They drive based on how the road is designed. That's why I don't want to take your whoop-de-doos out, because it would increase your speed limit a lot if I did, your operating speed if I did. So some of the things that we can do are putting in things like a curve in a road that didn't have a curve. Traffic circles do that. Four-way stop signs do that. Chicanes do that. Narrowing the width of a lane. If I narrow the width of a lane by 1 foot, I can usually slow down traffic between 3 to 5 miles per hour on that road. So did you know that since 2009, the city no longer uses a standard of 12-foot lanes, we use a standard of 11-foot lanes for all new road construction in the city, because we are trying to slow that speeding problem down in the city. So those are all the things that we can look at. On Nevada, where it's an existing road, I don't have the right of way to like put in a traffic circle unless I took out 4 homes, and I'm not going to do that in that historic district. So I'm a little constricted, but on the other side, if you do things like leaving the whoop-de-doos in, making sure that the lanes are narrow, maybe your signals shouldn't be as progressed as well as they are. That break my traffic engineer's heart, we work so hard on that, but that's okay. Those are things that can slow traffic down on an urban street like Nevada.
And the other concern I have is that I do live right by Espanola as well, and if that street is used by a lot of children to come to school, what can we do immediately? If we can't put another light up, what can we do for just preventing an accident with our kids? My kids like to use that street to go on the rollerblades. They're not elementary age anymore, but you know, they just wanting to keep that area safer, because it is an invitation to have a school there. And,
When my kids were young, they crossed Colfax to go to school. And they walked every day because I was a mean mother and wouldn't drive because it was only 2 blocks away. But they had their choice because I lived in a grid pattern. They had their choice. They could cross at Stewart or Tennyson or Raleigh, or there were a number of streets that they could cross and get to the school. But there was only one street that they were allowed to cross at, and that was the street that had a signal and had a pedestrian crossing that they could use. And my first emphasis to parents on Nevada is if your kids are crossing in Espanola, and especially crossing without your assistance, do them a favor, cause them to get more exercise and cross safely by walking down to Del Norte and cross at Del Norte while there's a signal. And the second one is if, as a neighborhood, you can decide, you know, if Espanola is a better location for that signal, that's fine. It does not take me long to relocate a signal. If having a pet crossing there instead of an intersection, I'll tell you, signalized intersections are not the safest place for pets, because you have cars turning right on red and cars looking for other things, and I get a lot of pedestrian accidents at signalized intersections. My safest is a mid-block signalized pedestrian crossing, because nothing else is happening there besides a pedestrian crossing. So if I can get a sidewalk in a mid-block, and you guys can agree with that, then the kids, whether they're on Espanola or Del Norte, are only walking half a block out of their way.
What would be required? I mean, what would you be looking for to do that?
I would be looking for support from the neighborhood so that I don't end up with a month load of editorials in the paper calling for my immediate demise. I want to make sure that the neighborhood was supportive of it. And then we would need to find that mid-block crossing and work with the property owners there to make sure that they were okay with a sidewalk extension that went from their sidewalk to the curb, so the kids could cross safely there. So it would take working with the people that live on that block, but and Steel Elementary could certainly help with this as well, but if the people in that general area, the people on that block want to get together with me and talk about what we could do there, I'm certainly open to doing that.
Okay, I'm gonna take the next question over here. I'll make my rounds, I'll trust me.
Sorry, I was out of line.
Mine was only part of it.
And Jerry White, I live on Weber Street. I'll make, I think, 3 comments. One, about the buses. So this is an affirmation. I've served on the Old North End Board for probably 20 years as school president. And from a neighborhood perspective, I think all the buses on Weber makes a lot of sense. Once Weber becomes one lane in each direction. Nevada shouldn't have, until Nevada is changed to one lane in each direction, the buses on Weber make sense. With a 2-lane configuration in each direction, cars are going to tend to pass the buses, creating all the problems you've described in the 2-lane situation.
And buses tend to drive the speed limit, so.
Buses drive the speed limit, that's everything I was going to say. I follow a lot of buses, at least on Weber Street. They're very close to the speed limit. And when the speed limit is 30 and Weber Street is 1 lane, everybody behind the buses is going to be going a little faster than the speed limit as well. So that's one thing. I have a bus stop in front of my house. So that's my first comment. The second is about discussion of reducing the speed limit from 35 to 30. And I think that that's an inappropriate description. If you walk outside the door here and go across each of the 3 or 4 streets that we're talking about, the West South streets, the speed limit is 25. So what the city is proposing is changing this, not changing this, lowering the speed limit, but instead of raising the speed limit from 25 to 35, they're going to raise the speed limit from 25 to 30. Downtown, where Kathleen and her colleagues work, where city council spends their time, where the mayor dwells, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. And it leaves the commercial district and comes to the residential district where we and our families live. The speed limit is raised to 30 miles an hour. So that's clearly the wrong thing to do. We're going to raise the speed limit from 25 to 30 in the residential area instead of raising it from 25 to 35. It really makes it clear how silly that is. And I just want to say, I do agree with Peter, the geometry is everything in this. And then lastly, I wanted to say a little something about the Espanola crossing. There's absolutely no physical reason why we can't have that second crossing. If you walk down in Nevada downtown, there is a traffic light at every block. So city council has that safety, the mayor has that safety, you and your colleagues have that safety. There is no reason why we and our children can't have that safety.
Bravo!
As I said, a lot of traffic engineering is psychological. And the psychological problem here is that the city, and I don't know, that's the generic description, I don't know if it's you personally or someone else, is opposed to that level of safety in our neighborhood that you give yourselves in the neighborhood where you work.
Can I have a raised hand? Who's wants to make a comment? Because I've got one in the back. Oh boy, now they're all coming up.
Remember, you can write your comments down. That's a good point. I will read them carefully. I promise.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'll make this quick as possible. Nick Appalese, I live in the 200 block of East San Miguel. I'm an old infantry man. I can speak loud enough. I was past president of the neighborhood for 4 years, just like Mr. White there. There's a lot of things I see as a big picture overall, and that crosswalk is one of them, man. We've been asking for 30 years for that crosswalk at that school. I won't let it go, because these kids have 4 lanes of traffic to cross. You know what I said last time. And also the Old North End master plan. Seems like it's been chucked off into the basket somewhere when that's a big document. It needs to still be follow through, because from 2008, when I came onto the board, until I left in 2015, and even arguing until last year, even now, a lot of that master plan had been completed by the neighbors, fishing out the money out of their pockets to do it. And when it came down to the city to do some of these things like bump outs, crosswalks, street lights, then we don't get so much. So, you know, we're kind of left in a lure there. So I understand where you're coming from, but here, the community, I hate the way it's doing this in my community right now. I see my board interacting and fighting all the time. I see the neighbors getting at each other and stuff like that. That's not what we're about. We're the best damn neighborhood in this city, hands down. It's gotten the warrior spirit and he kicked up again. You don't want that because that guy's an asshole. What I'm saying is, I know the police have had a hard time slowing traffic down. And I know certain other staff. The Old North End had been for a long time hiring off these police officers to try and slow that traffic down. We'd like to do that again. We know your other staff. And at the same time, give officers a chance to do overtime. But we need the officers who want to come out and do that traffic calm. The traffic calming that we need. Because what the lady said back there, I heard all the time when I was president, those same 5 to 7 o'clock p.m. hours of people speeding up and down the streets, or even on the evenings, on weekends, up and down there, I hear all the time. You know, and lastly, I gotta say this, I'm against the 2 lines on Woodward. That's one thing we're all different with Mr. White there. Because I don't believe that that street can hold that much traffic. It's already being torn the hell up to begin with. And my last point is this about this whole configuration. I've been there with you, Kathleen. You know that when you and I came on together in 09 together, right up until these last meetings. To me, this is nothing but more piecemeal infrastructure. We have piecemeal sidewalks, curb, gutter, ADA ramp, crosswalks missing, streetlights missing, our trees, our precious trees down the middle of the median, all mowed down because we're not being taken care of. So I see this as more piecemeal infrastructure until you can come to a comprehensive plan and say, yes, if this does work on Cascade, of course we got to do Wasatch, Nevada, and even Wood, I would even argue, you know, and slow all the traffic down. But we really got to have that crosswalk down. I mean, really, that is a minimum. I was disappointed when I heard people yell earlier because we came so close to getting it after, what, 1988. So it's been 30 years, right, Jerry, or more, right? So that's where I stand. But thank you for your time.
Hello, resident North Carolina and Del Norte. Why will you not even consider a light at Espanola? I mean, that was, like, you were so clear, you shut down the conversation that it's not even an option.
And let me explain it to you. That signal is not, because it would be at an intersection. I need to warrant it based on the traffic volume, and it was not close to being warranted. I can't warrant it based on school crossing, because I already have one block away, so they wouldn't allow it based on school crossing. So I have to consider first, I get requests for signals.
Okay, let's quiet down and listen to Ms. Schrader, please, I'm sorry.
What was that?
I'm just trying to get everybody quiet down so we can hear what you're saying.
I get asked for signals all the time, and we can only do a limited amount of money. But if I start putting in unwarranted signals in, then my request for signals is really growing. But let's say I ignored that and said, okay, we could signalize Espanola, and I would figure out how to get Espanola and Del Norte to work together and all that. I would have to put it on my list of promised signals to be signalized, and that list currently is about 5 years long. Are you guys going to be okay with that, or would you rather do something with the existing signal to make it work immediately?
Can they pay for it directly?
Yes. That's it, but I should warn you what a signal costs before you offer to pay for it. It's about a $250,000 bill. So it's. We can do it.
Okay, I'm going to take this question back over here.
Yeah, please I'm fine with that, but can you guys get together as a neighborhood and agree? Because if you could, I could move the signal. Or I can move it to mid-blocks. I don't care. But if I put in a brand new signal, that's $250,000, and I can't put you above people that have already been on the list. That's all I'm saying.
We've got one question back here. Please note that you guys can provide your comments on the paper and turn them in to one of us or at the table. I know it is a little bit after 8 o'clock, and we want to respect your time this evening, so we'll just close out with one more question or two. And I know we can all be here all night. We've got some conversation going, but I'm sure we all have some bedtime to get to as well. So let me close out with this gentleman right here.
Aside from encouragement from Colorado College or perhaps your own feelings, why have you decided to narrow Cascade this time and bypass City Council on that?
Because as a professional traffic engineer, if I am aware, if I have an identified safety problem, and don't bother to tell me that Espanola is an identified safety problem, there is an answer to that, and that's you have to walk the walk. But if I have an identified safety problem followed that has a number of accidents in it, and I don't do something about that, I personally am liable for that. And that's what was happening on Cascade at Colorado College. We'd had 15 pedestrian accidents over the last 10 years, and they were accidents that could have been prevented had that been handled differently. So I need to handle that.
You know, I had a good friend killed at the intersection of Nevada and Platte about 15 years ago, and I didn't hear any hue and cry about making significant changes there, nor with any of the high school students that hit their crossing Platte Avenue. So I just don't understand why you would pick and choose. I suspect that it's to modify the college, at least in significant part, but maybe I'm wrong.
The difference is it an accident problem that I can try to solve? Or was it an accident because someone drove carelessly, they drove drunk, they drove too fast? I can't personally solve those problems. I wish I could. But when it's an engineering problem, I need to take care of that. So that's why we went again.
Kathleen, there's no difference on that crosswalk, they want from the one that you just put in for CC. Half a block to UNA, that you had IDOT. The mayor's chief of staff said that he would have somebody up there writing jaywalking tickets. Haven't seen it yet. I have not seen you move the signs back to the safety of the students yet either, and that's been over a week. So it's all talk and no action.
And between there and Cashville Cougar, there's a crosswalk. Pedestrian crosswalk and another crosswalk at Cashville.
Yeah, that extra one on Nevada, closer to Cashville Cougar, is coming out this summer. And the 4 on Cascade will be reduced to 2.
Are they gonna have stoplights on, because the students don't care about stopping when they're doing their cell
There are not going to be stoplights on Cascade that would delay the traffic on Cascade. Guys, it's after 8 o'clock, they're going to check us out here.
Can you answer what changed in the past few years over the safety issue?
Thank you all for coming. Be sure you sit in.